here are some of the coolest skills that animals have. Number 7. African lungfish. Have you ever heard of a fish that can survive on land? Yes. Okay, there are quite a few species of lungfish that can survive on land as they have lungs, and as you can figure out, I hope, that's why they're called lungfish. However, there's a particular species of lungfish that can breathe air on land and also do another special trick: put its life on pause. The official term is called suspended animation, and it's essentially a way for the fish to live with food or water for up to 5 years. And scientists are trying to figure out exactly this mechanism works in order to apply it to us humans in the future. The best use for suspended animation on humans is easily for long-term space travel. Another application is for medical use, as it would be useful to slow down someone's vital organs in order to operate on them in critical situations. That, or you just want to see what the future is like in a few hundred years. But that's just a huge gamble. Anyways, during suspended animation, the African lungfish doesn't eat, drink, and of course, produce any waste for as long as 5 years. Researchers say that this lungfish is able to slow its biological clock and survive in a very low energy state. Back in June 2005, scientists at the University of Pittsburgh's Safar Center for Resuscitation Research managed to place dogs in suspended animation and bring them back to life. Most of these dogs were able to survive the ordeal without brain damage. The procedure was performed by draining the blood out of the dog's body and injecting a low-temperature solution into the circulatory system, which kept the dogs alive in suspended animation. After 3 hours of being clinically dead, the dog's blood was returned to their circulatory systems, and the dogs were revived by delivering an electric shock to their heart, and the dogs were brought back to life. Scientists are continuing to research what exactly happens to gene expression in various parts of the African lungfish during its suspended animation, and also after, in order to figure out how to create this suspended state in humans. I'm still trying to figure out why African lungfish would want to do this, and how we figured out that they can do it for up to 5 years. I guess it's just whenever they can't find food. Number 6. Hairy frog. Any of you guys want to be like Wolverine? Well then, you've got to learn how the hairy frog is able to do its trick. The hairy frog, also known as the Wolverine frog, is a Central African species of frog. Its common name refers to the somewhat hair-like structures on the body and thighs of the breeding male. This particular frog species is terrestrial, but it returns to the water for breeding, where eggs are laid onto rocks in streams. The quite muscular tadpoles are carnivorous and feature several rows of horned teeth. That doesn't sound ridiculous. Adults feed on slugs, spiders, beetles, and grasshoppers. Okay, enough background. Let's get to the good part. The hairy frog is notable in possessing retractable claws. Except, unlike true claws, these claws are made of bone, which the frog may decide to use by breaking through the skin with its claws, and apparently also by intentionally breaking the bones of the toe in the process. Just wow! Researchers found a small bony nodule nestled in the tissue just beyond the frog's fingertip. When sheathed, each claw is anchored to the nodule with tough strands of collagen. However, when the frog is grabbed or attacked, the frog breaks the nodule connection and forces its sharpened bones through the skin. Seriously, this frog is a real-life Wolverine. How cool is that? Number 5. Scarlet jellyfish. What would you do if you could live forever? Or at least be able to regenerate your body, so basically it's like living forever. I personally think there isn't fun in forever anyways, but hey, different strokes for different folks. Living like an immortal animal is what the scarlet jellyfish, or aka the immortal jellyfish, does extremely well with its amazing ability to basically turn back the hands of time for itself. Most jellyfish species have a relatively fixed lifespan, which varies by species from hours to many months. When an adult scarlet jellyfish, also known as Medusa, is injured, it goes to the bottom of the ocean floor. From there, it morphs back into its infant state, known as a polyp. Then the polyp becomes a new Medusa, allowing the jellyfish to move between an adult and infant state in about 2 months. The scarlet jellyfish is the only form of jellyfish known to have developed the ability to go back to a polyp state by a specific transformation process that requires the presence of certain cell types. Various lab experiments have revealed that all stages of the scarlet jellyfish can transform back into polyps, the beginning stage of life for these jellyfish. This ability to reverse its life cycle in response to harmful conditions is unique in the animal kingdom and essentially makes this jellyfish biologically immortal since it can bypass death. Studies in the laboratory show that 100% of specimens could revert to the polyp stage, but the process hasn't been observed in nature because the process is fast. One Japanese professor managed to revive a scarlet jellyfish an incredible 12 times in his lab in his search for the jellyfish's secret. Despite this remarkable ability, most scarlet jellyfish fall victim to the general hazards of life, such as being eaten by predators. Number 4. Mimic octopus. The mimic octopus is an Indo-Pacific species of octopus capable of impersonating other local species to look like whatever is around it in order to escape its predators. They're quite notable for being able to change their skin color and texture almost instantaneously in order to blend in with their environment, such as algae-encrusted rock or a nearby coral. The mimic octopus is able to perform this amazing trick through pigment sacs known as chromatophores. It's not only able to change color, but it's also able to take on the shape of various objects and animals. The mimic octopus is the animal that's apparently the best at adapting to its environment, as it's able to mimic the most wide variety of animals. Many animals can imitate a different species to avoid or intimidate predators, but the mimic octopus is the only one that can imitate as diverse a range of forms in order to elude predators. The mimic octopus also uses aggressive mimicry to approach prey. For example, it'll mimic a crab as an apparent mate, except when the crab gets close, the mimic octopus will pounce to eat the crab. If that's not a bait and switch, I don't know what is. The mimic octopus is for sure quite impressive. It's the first known species to mimic more than one other species, and the first octopus to possess the ability to mimic. It isn't known how many animals the mimic octopus can imitate, but it's known that most of the animals that it mimics are poisonous. The octopus may mimic animals known to deter a specific threatening predator. For example, it's been observed that when an octopus was attacked by a damselfish, the octopus quickly mimicked a black and yellow banded sea snake, a damselfish predator. Seriously, how would an octopus know this? And how would it know what to change to? Number 3. Bombardier beetle. How many of you guys would like to have the ability to spray a boiling hot liquid from places on your body, such as your crotch and self-defense? No one? Good, because me neither. Bombardier beetles are ground beetles that, when disturbed, eject a hot, noxious chemical spray from the tip of their abdomen with a popping sound. Ugh, that just sounds disgusting. The spray is produced from a reaction between two chemical compounds, hydroquinone and hydrogen peroxide, which are stored in two reservoirs in the beetle's abdomen. When the solution reaches the vestibule, catalysts facilitate the decomposition of the hydrogen peroxide and the oxidation of the hydroquinone. Heat from the reaction brings the mixture to near the boiling point of water and produces gas that drives the ejection. The damage caused can be fatal to attacking insects. This chemical reaction is very exothermic, and released energy raises the temperature of the mixture to 100 degrees Celsius, vaporizing about a fifth of it. The boiling, foul-smelling liquid partially becomes a gas by flash evaporation and is expelled explosively through an outlet valve with a loud popping sound. The beetle's glands store enough hydroquinone and hydrogen peroxide to allow the beetle to release its chemical spray roughly 20 times, which is enough to kill most predators. The spray occurs in a series of about 70 pulses at a rate of about 500 pulses per second. The whole sequence of events takes only a fraction of a second. This pulsed mechanism is beneficial for the beetle's survival because the system uses pressure instead of muscles to eject the spray at a constant velocity, saving the beetle energy. Typically, the beetle turns its body to direct the jet towards whatever triggered the response. The gland openings of some African bombardier beetles can swivel through 270 degrees and thrust between the insect's legs, discharging the fluid in a wide range of directions with considerable accuracy. Whoops! Number 2. pit vipers. Remember that one scene in the old school movie Predator? Yeah, the movie where Arnold and his crew was battling some hellish alien from whatever planet. The scene I'm talking about is where Arnold covers his body in mud so the Predator couldn't see him, since the Predator only had infrared detecting eyes. So Arnold was able to get the jump on him. Basically, that's gonna be the same strategy you're gonna take if a pit viper ever decides to hunt you, because pit vipers have what's called loreal pits, which are the external openings to a pair of extremely sensitive infrared detecting organs. These pit organs are what give pit vipers the ability to help them find and determine the size of warm-blooded prey. The pit organ is pretty complex in structure. The membrane is like an eardrum that divides the pit into two sections of unequal size, with the larger of the two facing forwards and exposed to the environment. The two sections are connected via a narrow tube that can be controlled by the pit viper, which allows it to balance the air pressure on either side of the membrane. Pretty cool if you ask me. When prey comes into range, infrared radiation falls onto the membrane, which allows the snake to determine which direction the prey is. Having each of these organs on both sides of the head produces a stereo effect that indicates the distance in addition to direction. Just to illustrate how ridiculously accurate pit vipers are with their infrared pit organs, experiments were conducted on pit vipers. When pit vipers were deprived of their sense of sight and smell, these guys can still strike accurately at moving objects that have less than a 0.2 Celsius change in temperature in the background. Clearly, when the pit viper hunts at night, having these organs are essential if it wants to catch some dinner. That, and to keep away from its own predators. Number 1, snapping shrimp. Can you imagine being able to make a louder sound than a jet engine? That's exactly what the snapping shrimp, or otherwise known as pistol shrimps, can do. So, what else in the ocean makes as much noise as these little guys, who measure around 2 centimeters long? Let's just say this shrimp rivals the noise that the sperm whale and beluga whale make for loudest animal in the sea. These shrimp snap a specialized claw shut in order to create a cavitation bubble that generates acoustic pressures at a distance of 4 centimeters from its claw. Oh, hold up. What exactly is a cavitation? A cavitation is just the formation of a bubble in a liquid. Basically, a small bubble is the consequence of forces acting on the liquid caused by, in this case, this tiny shrimp's claw. How the shrimp creates a shock wave is through what's called inertial cavitation. An inertial cavitation is the process where a bubble in a liquid rapidly collapses, which is what produces a shock wave. As the cavitation bubble extends out from the claw, the bubble reaches speeds of around 62 miles per hour and releases a sound that's as loud as 218 decibels. Snapping shrimp do this in order to stun its prey. The pressure is strong enough to kill small fish, which is probably an understatement. The peak decibel is also, of course, depending on the size of the claw of the shrimp. The snap from the claw can also produce sonoluminescence, which are short bursts of light from imploding bubbles. However, the light produced by the snapping shrimp is lower in intensity than the light produced by typical sonoluminescence and isn't visible to the naked eye. It's most likely a byproduct of the shockwave, and it doesn't have any sort of biological significance to the shrimp. The snapping is used for hunting as well as communication. When hunting, the snapping shrimp usually lies in an obscure spot, such as a burrow. The shrimp then extends its antenna outward to determine if any fish are passing by. Once it feels movement, the shrimp inches out of its hiding place, pulls back its claw, and releases basically its shot, which stuns or kills its prey. Once that's done, it's basically game over, and the shrimp then gets to eat. This shrimp basically has a gun for an arm. Now that's pretty boss. Here's what's next.
A while ago, there was a post that went viral about a deep-sea fisherman sharing some photos of some of the weird creatures that end up in his nets. This laughing octopus was one of them, but the post did not include any descriptions or details, only the photos. Do any of you know what this thing is? Have you ever